Hey there everybody, welcome back to Crypt Finder. So in my last video, I covered a made-for-TV movie called Stranger in Our House, sometimes also called Summer of Fear from 1978. And then right before that one, I covered Midnight Offerings from 1981. Both of those were made-for-TV movies that feature the theme of witchcraft, so it only seemed natural we go just a little bit farther back and hit on another one as well. This one that I want to spotlight tonight actually was part of ABC's Movie of the Week, and it aired November 24th, 1970. It was called Crowhaven Farm. This is a moody little slice of supernatural folk horror, taps into very much America's sort of colonial past, and it also sort of dabbles with the idea of the Salem witch trials. This was one of the very first made-for-TV movies where network TV, they were going to sort of dip their toes into the wellspring of occult horror that, of course, would come to just kind of dominate made-for-TV movies in the coming decade. The film features Hope Lange and Paul Burke as a married couple, Maggie and Ben Porter, who unexpectedly inherit a very secluded farm in New England. And at first, their new home seems like an opportunity for a fresh start. They are unable to have children, unfortunately, and that's put a bit of a strain on their relationship. And then the finances aren't so hot either. Ben is a struggling artist, and he's also really prone to bouts of jealousy. Now, the second that Maggie actually steps foot on the farm, she has a very uneasy feeling. She thinks she has been there before, even suggesting maybe it was in another life because she seems to know her way around. She finds hidden rooms and secret passageways, and it unnerves her so much she really wants to leave. But her husband loves the place. He has grand plans to turn the barn into a very elaborate art studio, and so, reluctantly, they decide to stay. But the longer they are there, the more Maggie senses something is deeply wrong with the land and with the secretive townspeople, and sort of typical of this type of film. You have strange behaviors developing, you have whispered histories and unsettling rituals, suggesting that the farm may be bound to a much darker legacy that refuses to stay buried. Hope Lange stars here, and you might remember her from her turn in the TV series The Ghost of Mrs. Muir from 1968 to 1970, based on the hit film. She was also in Death Wish with Charles Bronson. She played his wife in 1974. A ton of TV shows and films, but she was also in A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge in 1985, and then also in David Lynch's Blue Velvet the following year in 1986. Paul Burke plays her artist husband here. He had a very interesting career. He starred in the TV series Naked City from 1958 to 63. He was in Valley of the Dolls in 1967, The Thomas Crown Affair in 1968, and he also was in the series 12 O'Clock High from 1964 to 67. He even starred in Dynasty for a while in 1981 as a corrupt congressman. But then, in a sort of bizarre twist of fate, the actor, along with some others, including the New Orleans DA, who is Harry Connick Sr., that's Harry Connick Jr., the singer, his father, they were indicted on federal racketeering charges and perjury and aiding a gambling establishment. And now Connick and Burke were both completely acquitted of all of those charges, and yet it really kind of damaged Burke's reputation. The scandal was so much, really didn't do a lot of acting after that. You also have some familiar faces showing up here. Lloyd Bachner is a lascivious neighbor. You have John Carradine as a handyman showing up as well. He was known for a ton of movies and TV appearances. Carradine, by his own admission, said he had been in more movies than any other actor, well over 300. Some reports put it as high as 500, but genre fans will of course recognize him for some of his classics like Bluebeard from 1944, House of Frankenstein from 1944 as well, House of Dracula from 1945, and The Howling from 1981, among so many others. And Cyril Delavanti, who was in Bedknobs and Broomsticks and Soylent Green, he plays a very small role here. He's the one who clues Maggie into the witchcraft history of the region and provides her some cozy yet disturbing reading material. So, unlike a lot of other horror movies from the 1970s, Crowhaven Farm really thrives on atmosphere and suggestion. Its isolated setting, which the film handles pretty well, in that about 90% of the entire movie is sort of within the confines of the farm. You've got the ominous small-town characters who pop up, and the constant unease of being an outsider gives the movie sort of a slow burn creepiness. I'm sure some people will find this movie a complete snooze fest, and I think that's probably because of how we digest movies today at lightning speeds. But instead of blood or shocks, the movie has to rely much more on a mounting sense of dread, where every smile from a neighbor feels just a little too knowing. And frankly, yes, the movie is slower by today's standards, but the plot points come at you so fast, you're going to need to be able to keep up. I know, that sounds like a contradiction. How can the movie move slow, but at the same time it has so much story in it that it's just jammed full to the rafters? That's just how this particular movie rolls. There are little odd moments and bits of dialogue that are actually segues into other parts of the film. I think if this was remade today, I would just fully expect this to be turned into a series where they would have much more time to breathe and explore the story and really dive in to some of the fascinating things that they really do bring up in this one. I'm reminded also of what the great Joe Bob Briggs said one time in a review. There's a whole lot of plot getting in the way of this story. That's how I feel about this film. For television in 1970, this was a surprisingly daring movie, tackling themes of witchcraft, sacrifice, and inherited guilt at a time when network horror was still finding its footing. It makes this one a little bit more interesting. I would have been okay if this had gone farther, but yeah, that never would have happened on TV in 1970. I don't want to discuss any spoilers. Yes, I know the movie aired 50-something years ago, and yeah, I was right there watching it in 1970. Absolutely loved it. I always had sort of a real fondness for anything to do with witches. So yeah, I absolutely loved it. But without going too deep and spoiling it for anyone who has not seen it, I'll just say some of the ideas in this movie are pretty bold. You're supposed to end up with a kind of twist ending, which isn't. You can see it coming a mile away. But the more fascinating take is what the filmmakers do in subverting your expectations of a protagonist. When the movie ends, you have a chance to sit back and reflect on that, and maybe you'll come away with a different point of view. What makes a character a hero, as in someone you identify with and care about their survival, or what choices really highlight them as a villain? Today, this stands as a really fascinating early entry in the sort of quasi-folk horror rooted in New England's history. I did a video on The Dark Secret of Harvest Home, which absolutely is folk horror as far as that tradition goes, but Crowhaven Farm is just a little bit different. It has elements of folk horror in there, but it's also very much steeped in reincarnation and witchcraft and demonic rituals. And it has been uploaded to YouTube, so you can check it out some cold evening if you feel like a dose of Puritan devilry. That'll do it, everybody. Until next time, stay curious and stay scared.